Hello, I'm Darren Magee, and today's question asks if I would outline some of the most common tactics that are used by grandiose narcissists. Tactics that are used to coerce, manipulate, threaten, bully their victims. Now, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, please click like and please consider subscribing to my channel. But just as a reminder, this video is not a substitute for support from a mental health professional, nor is it a tool to be used to diagnose someone. And when it comes to narcissism, I'm not just referring to someone who can be selfish or nasty or whatever once in a while. I'm referring to pathological narcissism. Now, that can often be defined as being arrogant, having a sense of self-importance, a sense of entitlement. It's being disagreeable. There's a lack of empathy. There's being sensitive or being resistant to criticism. And there are different kinds of narcissists, and I've outlined these in previous videos. The most common being the grandiose or the overt narcissist. On the other end of that spectrum, there is the vulnerable or the covert narcissist. Many different shades in between. But for today, we're just going to be focusing on the grandiose narcissist. And you may not hear the following things actually word for word. However, you may recognize variations of them, and at times there may be unspoken threats, but they are still shown or at least strongly implied through behaviours. And for today, I'm not going to be including acts or threats of physical violence. I'm only going to be talking about the psychological coercion, the emotional coercion. And although there may be differences in how these are used, how these are applied, these would commonly apply to, say, a long-term partner, a long-term narcissistic partner, say like a narcissistic husband or a narcissistic wife, or indeed a narcissistic parent. So the first one is, I've already decided, so don't confuse me with the facts. Now, there are different ways of looking at this, depending on the intent or the situation, but what it really means is I can't be wrong ever. I've decided that I'm right. So if the narcissist decides that they're right, what they really mean by default is that you and pretty much everybody else in the world is wrong. Now, sometimes this might come out as, I will tell you your version of events. I know exactly what you're thinking. I know exactly what you're feeling. I know exactly what you're doing, what your motives are, what your agenda is, and so on. And if I don't like it, you'd better change it. Other times it might mean something like, I don't have to prove that you're lying. I don't have to prove that you're cheating. I don't have to prove that you're wrong. I don't have to prove whatever it is. You have to prove that you're not. And good luck with that, because I'm not going to listen to a damn word you say. One way or another, it's just they've decided that they're right. And what they're really trying to say is you must not do, say, think, or feel anything without their approval first, because they believe they can always see right through you. Secondly, my suffering, my outrage proves how righteous and noble I really am. And this is often used to justify tantrums, to justify abusive bad behaviour, to justify narcissistic rage. The belief behind this being, I suppose, I cannot allow anything to upset me or disappoint me, so God help you if you do. In fact, God help you if anybody does. And although it might not be said openly, might not be said directly, this is often conveyed to the victim as you are responsible for what I think, how I feel, how I behave, so be on your toes. The next one is, and have you ever heard this one? You have to earn respect. Well, when a narcissist says you have to earn respect, what they're really saying is you have to earn my respect. Which, let's be honest, you never will. It's really just another way of saying, I will treat you any way I want until I decide otherwise. So you just keep on appeasing me. I will treat you any way I want because clearly you deserve it. But the thing is, do you ever notice the double standards? Because do you ever notice you're the one who has to earn respect? They don't. You have to respect them, you have to admire them, you have to obey them, you have to worship them at all times. It's theirs by right. Fourthly, I'll tell others what you're really like. If only other people knew what you were really like. What they'll do is to threaten to tell your friends, your family, your partner, your buddies in work, whatever. Threaten to tell them what you're really like. It is a threat that is intended to shame you. But what does that really mean? I'm going to tell people about the things I accuse you of. You know, now that I know what embarrasses you, what frightens you, now I know your dark secrets and so on, I'm going to use that to coerce you. I'm going to tell people things that I know will humiliate you unless you give me what I want. Now, for what it's worth, I've known quite a few people with ex-vindictive partners or vindictive ex-partner is probably a better way of putting that. And yes, they have contacted these people's workplaces, but the thing is, at each and every single time, you know, when they contacted the workplace making these mad, crazy accusations, the workplace did not go to that person and say, hey, guess what we heard about you? They went to that person and said, look, we've just had someone on the phone here. They were ranting about this, that, and the other. And, you know, do you need any help? Do you want us to arrange some counselling for you? Do you need a bit of time off? They were very supportive in each and every case. All that abusive person did was to show others the type of person the victim was trying to get away from. But again, let's come back to those double standards. Do you ever notice the same person that threatens to tell other people about you is the same person that threatens you, you'd better not tell others about them? Another common abusive tactic: you're too sensitive. You've no sense of humour. You read too much into things. In other words, what they're really saying is, you have a problem with having a problem with the disgraceful way that I treat you. Next up, look at what you made me do. Now, it's a way of having someone believe that they are responsible for someone else's actions. You know, you're responsible for my anger. You are responsible for my expectations not being met. You know, doesn't matter how unreasonable or ridiculous they are. You are responsible for my unhappiness, and you are responsible for my happiness. It's really a way of keeping the victim in a state of constant vigilance, afraid to make any decision, afraid to do anything, afraid not to do something because of the narcissistic rage and upset that might follow. Now, being held to account for other people's actions, I tend to liken that to watching someone beating themselves over the head with a frying pan and screaming, look at what you're making me do. I mean, it's absolutely nonsensical and ridiculous. But again, looking at those double standards, the victim is responsible for the narcissist's behaviour. However, the victim is also responsible for their own behaviour. When they react to being abused, when they assert themselves, when they stand up for themselves, when they answer back or whatever, they are now the abuser. The narcissist accuses them of being the abusive, nasty person. It's what's known as reactive abuse, and I've made a video about that before if you want to check that out. Another common tactic is, I will interrogate you. I will pick holes in everything you say until you doubt yourself. And this works on different levels. It's a way of the victim having to constantly prove themselves, prove they're not cheating, prove they're not lying, prove they're not wrong, prove that they know what they're talking about. It is also a way of the narcissist to demonstrate their superior knowledge about whatever it is, because let's be honest, your average narcissist probably knows more about your job than you do. They know more about your background than you do, how you were raised than you do. They know more about your culture, your religion than you do. It's also a form of gaslighting, picking up on any kind of discrepancy as evidence that you're mistaken, you're wrong, or you're lying. And the common phrase that comes with that is, it usually sounds something along the lines of, that's not what you said a minute ago. That's not what you said 5 minutes ago. That's not what you said back in 2004. The last one for today, and I think this is probably the most insidious one. Who's going to believe you? Now, this is often reinforced by loads and loads of virtue signalling, posting their support for these really noble causes on Facebook and Twitter and whatever, being amazingly attentive and caring to others, doing amazing acts of charity work, and being very active at the church, giving their testimony, praying out loud, going to mass every single day, being best friends with the priest and so on. Who is going to believe you? I can destroy your character. Mine is bulletproof. God, the whole world is on my side. Everyone's against you. In narcissistic relationships, people usually find themselves being isolated from their friends and their family and so on. And this is yet another way of isolating the victim. It leads them to believe that they are helpless, they are powerless, and they are without any kind of social support network. So they are some of the more common phrases, tactics that grandiose narcissists use to intimidate, threaten, coerce, bully their victims. And there are many others, things like, you need me, you're nothing without me. If you pay any attention to your needs at all, you're being selfish. Just accept it because I'm not for changing. And yes, this can have detrimental effects on someone, particularly in long term. And I made a video recently on the effects of narcissistic abuse syndrome, and check that out if you think it would be helpful to you. But in the meantime, if there's any that I've missed, anything that you'd want to add, please use the comment box below. I do like reading and responding to your comments whenever I can. If you like this video, Please consider subscribing to my channel for future updates on mental health related topics, and until next time, thanks for watching.